November 20th, 869 AD. A king is dying, slowly. His body's stuck with so many arrows he looks like a porcupine. Vikings are using him for target practice, and he's not begging for mercy, he's praying for them. The man torturing him? A warlord so brutal his name alone made kingdoms surrender. But here's the twist. By killing this king, he accidentally made him immortal. This is the story of two men locked in a battle that would echo through 1,000 years of history. On one side, Ivar the Boneless, a Viking commander whose very name made kingdoms tremble. On the other, King Edmund of East Anglia, a Christian ruler about to face a choice between his crown and his God. What happened in that forest in 869 AD wasn't just a martyrdom. It was a collision of worldviews so violent, so absolute, that it would transform a regional king into a legend, and a pagan butcher into an unwitting instrument of the very god he despised.
But here's what makes this story unforgettable. Ivar didn't just kill Edmund, he created him. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how an act of supreme cruelty became the foundation of England's faith. Let's go back to where it all began. England, 860s AD. But England is a stretch. It's really a patchwork of rival kingdoms constantly squabbling over borders, honor, and power. East Anglia is one of these kingdoms, fertile, wealthy, prosperous, and completely unprepared for what's coming across the North Sea. King Edmund rules there, young, devout. By all accounts, he's not a warrior king obsessed with conquest. He's a Christian king, obsessed with justice, charity, and ruling in the image of Christ. The medieval chronicles paint him almost like a monk who happened to wear a crown. He fasted, he prayed, he gave generously to the poor, which, as it turns out, makes him spectacularly unqualified for what's about to hit his shores. Because in 865 AD, the Great Heathen Army arrives. This isn't a raiding party, this is an invasion force. Thousands of Viking warriors, led by the sons of the legendary Ragnar Lothbrok.
Their mission? Simple. Conquer England, burn its churches, humiliate its kings. And among these commanders is Ivar. Now, let's talk about Ivar for a second. History calls him the Boneless, and scholars have debated that nickname for centuries. Was he incredibly flexible? Did he have a disability? Was it a metaphor for cunning? Honestly, doesn't matter. What does matter is this. Ivar was terrifying. Brilliant strategist, ruthless tactician, and according to the sagas, a man who felt no fear and showed no mercy. By 869, his army has already torn through Northumbria and Mercia. Kings have fallen, cities have burned, and now his eyes turn toward East Anglia. Edmund's kingdom is next, and here's what makes this personal. Ivar's already killed one king this year, King Ella of Northumbria, the guy who supposedly killed Ivar's father, Ragnar. The sagas say Ivar had him executed by blood eagle, ribs torn from the spine, lungs pulled out like wings while he was still alive. So when Edmund hears Ivar's coming, he knows exactly what this man is capable of.
The Vikings arrive like a storm. They sweep through East Anglia, and Edmund faces a choice: fight or negotiate. Edmund chooses negotiation. He's outnumbered, outmatched, and perhaps, just perhaps, he believes that reason and diplomacy can avoid bloodshed. So when Ivar summons him, Edmund goes. Picture the scene. Edmund walks into Ivar's war camp. Thousands of Vikings, weapons everywhere, the smell of smoke and blood. Ivar sitting there surrounded by his jarls, and you can see it in his eyes. He's already won. He owns Edmund's kingdom. This is just formality. One man believes in mercy, forgiveness, and turning the other cheek. The other believes in strength, conquest, and the gods of Asgard. They are speaking two completely different languages, even when they use the same words. And then Ivar makes his offer, except it's not really an offer. Renounce your Christ, share your kingdom with me, become my vassal, or die. Now, from a purely political standpoint, this is a deal Edmund could take. Bend the knee, keep your life, maybe even keep some power. Lots of kings throughout history have made that exact calculation. Survival over pride, pragmatism over principle.
But Edmund doesn't see it as a political question. He sees it as a spiritual one. And in that moment, everything becomes clear to him. He's not just a king, he's a Christian king. And Christ himself faced this exact test, the choice between compromising with earthly power or staying faithful unto death. Edmund looks at Ivar, this pagan warlord, this instrument of violence, and he says, "No, I will not renounce Christ. I will not rule beside a pagan, and I will not fight back, because Christ did not fight back when they came for him." Ivar's response? Rage. Now, you have to understand something about Vikings. They respected strength, courage, dying well in battle. But what Edmund's about to do, not fighting back, that's not courage to them, that's weakness, that's insanity, and it's about to drive Ivar absolutely insane. What happens next is one of the most brutal martyrdoms in Christian history. And it's important we don't sanitize it, because the horror of it is precisely what transformed Edmund from a king into a saint.
Ivar's men seize Edmund. They drag him to a forest clearing. They tie him to an oak tree, arms spread wide, echoing the crucifixion. And then the torture begins. First, they whip him. The chroniclers say his flesh was torn, his back laid open. But Edmund doesn't curse them. He doesn't beg. He prays, out loud, calling to Christ, calling to God. And this is what enrages the Vikings, because Edmund won't break, he won't renounce, he won't even show fear. So they escalate. So they turn it into a game. Viking warriors, battle-hardened killers, start placing bets. Who can hit him in the arm? Who can make him scream? They're laughing, making jokes, and Edmund still praying. Not cursing them, not begging, praying for their souls, which only makes them angrier. So they keep shooting, arms, legs, chest. The medieval accounts say he was struck so many times that the arrows protruded from him in every direction, like the spines of a porcupine, the chroniclers wrote. Arrows sticking out at every angle. And through it all, Edmund keeps praying, keeps calling out to Jesus, his voice growing weaker, but never stopping. Finally, Ivar gives the order. Beheading, the ultimate humiliation for a king. They cut off Edmund's head and throw it into the dense brambles of the forest, leaving his body tied to the tree as a warning to anyone else who would defy them. And that should have been the end of the story. Viking moves on, king forgotten. Except his followers came back, and what they found, it shouldn't have been possible. Edmund's followers eventually return to the forest. They're terrified, heartbroken, searching for their king's body so they can give him a proper burial. They find his body, still tied to the tree,
But his head? Gone. Lost somewhere in the thick underbrush. Then they hear something. A voice. But not a human voice. It's coming from deep in the forest. Here. 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 They follow it, weapons drawn, thinking it's a trap. And then they see it. A massive grey wolf. Not fleeing, not attacking, just sitting there. And between its paws, Edmund's head, eyes closed, almost peaceful. The wolf looks at them, steps back like it's been waiting for them, and they swear, the head speaks one more time, here. The wolf isn't eating it, isn't tearing it. It's been guarding it. They take the head, they reunite it with the body, and they bury Edmund with all the honour befitting a king and a martyr. And here's where the story becomes something more than history. It becomes myth. Because within a generation, miracles start happening at Edmund's tomb. Healings, visions, answered prayers. Pilgrims flock from across England and beyond. A church is built, then a great abbey. At its peak, the shrine of St. Edmund at Bury St. Edmunds was one of the richest pilgrimage sites in medieval England, rivaling even Canterbury. We're talking hundreds of thousands of pilgrims, tons of gold in offerings, an entire town built around this guy's bones. Edmund becomes one of England's most venerated saints, so beloved that for centuries people swore oaths by St. Edmund's bones. His feast day, November 20th, was celebrated across the realm. And Ivar, the pagan who tortured him, he fades into history. A footnote, a villain, a shadow. But by trying to destroy Edmund, he immortalized him.
So here's the paradox that makes this story unforgettable. Ivar had all the power, the army, the weapons, the tactical genius. He could have killed Edmund quietly, pragmatically, and moved on. Instead, he staged a spectacle, a public martyrdom so theatrical, so brutal, that it was designed to send a message. This is what happens when you defy us. But martyrdom doesn't work the way Ivar thought it did. See, when you kill someone who refuses to fight back, who prays for their enemies, who imitates Christ even unto death, you don't destroy them. You sanctify them. You take a man and you turn him into a symbol, a story, a legend. Ivar the Boneless became the unwitting instrument of the very God he despised. His cruelty didn't snuff out Christianity in England, it fueled it. His violence didn't silence Edmund, it gave him a voice that echoed for 1,000 years. And maybe that's the deeper truth here. Power, real power, isn't about who has the biggest army or the sharpest blade. It's about who you become when everything is stripped away. When you're tied to a tree bristling with arrows and you still have the choice, compromise or conviction.
Edmund chose conviction, and in doing so, he defeated Ivar in a way the Viking could never have anticipated. Think about it. How many powerful people from 869 AD do you know? Can you name 5? 10? But you know Edmund. You know Ivar. Because violence and power, they're loud, but they're temporary. Conviction, that echoes. That's the thing about martyrs. They don't just die, they multiply. Now, modern historians debate how much of this actually happened. Did Edmund really get the arrow treatment? Was there really a talking wolf? Maybe, maybe not. But here's what we know for certain. Within 50 years,
Edmund's cult was so powerful that Viking raiders stopped attacking his shrine. Vikings, the same guys who burned every other church they found. Something happened in that forest that changed people. Whether it was exactly how the monks wrote it or not, that's almost irrelevant. The story became reality.
So the next time you hear someone say that violence always wins, that might makes right, that the ruthless inherit the earth, remember Edmund. Remember that a king who died tied to a tree became more powerful in death than any conqueror who put him there. History is full of stories like this. Moments where everything seems lost, but something shifts and defeat becomes transformation. If you want more stories like this, where everything you thought you knew gets flipped on its head, subscribe. I've got more videos on warriors, Vikings, and mythical wolves. This is just the beginning. And drop a comment. Do you think Edmund made the right choice? Would you have bent the knee to Ivar, or would you have stood firm like Edmund? I'm genuinely curious what you think. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.